My name is Chandra Phillips, and I am the Teaching and Learning Specialist for Secondary Social Studies, grades 6 through 12. Today, we will do an overview of a Canvas model lesson for our teachers and staff of Caddo Parish. The vision of the Department of Teaching and Learning is that all Caddo Parish public school students will demonstrate high levels of learning of standards from an effective educator. Our mission is that the Department of Teaching and Learning is committed to equipping and empowering Caddo Parish Public Schools educators with the knowledge, skills, and resources necessary to teach the right thing the right way to achieve desired results. The Teaching and Learning Professional Learning Support Model. Today, we will be focusing on the following. We will review our training stage 1, in which we did this past summer. Are we teaching the right thing through our summer professional development? In our summer sessions, you learned what should we be teaching in the academic school year for 2020-21. In our session today, we will focus on training stage 2. Are we teaching it the right way? Given available tools, how will we teach what is needed to all students in 2021? In the beginning Canvas, basic assessment tools, and engagement management tools. Our next steps will take us to training stage 3. Are we teaching it the right way? Intermediate to advanced Canvas and intermediate to advanced assessment tools and more engagement management tools. The hybrid AB schedule. The hybrid AB schedule consists of 5 days of progressive learning. Lessons are not taught twice. Students at home will learn the same information the students at school are learning. Please do not get this confused with an A and B block schedule or plan a different lesson for your face-to-face students than your students that are at home. Each student, regardless if they are virtual or face-to-face, will get the same lesson through Canvas. Now, let's review the things that we talked about and learned this summer. As a part of our summer sessions, we reviewed with teachers what that looks like in the social studies classroom. Remember, as social studies teachers, we should always teach with the 3 shifts in social studies in mind, where we help students to utilize sources, make connections with content, and be able to create informed opinions about the subjects and what they are learning. We also want to follow our flow of cycle of learning, where we set the context, explore sources, develop claims, and help students to express claims. Last, we want to make sure that our teachers are planning for instructional tasks using the backwards design and using such resources as the Louisiana Department of Education Scope and Sequence, the companion documents, and the SNS Guide, a Caddo Parish created resource to help support teachers in the classroom. Now, today, we will focus on stage 2. Are we teaching it the right way? As educators and students and parents are facing new challenges with the COVID-19, we want you to know that our new LMS system will be designed to help ease the burden of not only educators and students, but parents as well. This session will focus on helping teachers know how to teach content in our new Canvas LMS system. Building a social studies lessons in Canvas. We want to help our social studies teachers be able to do integration of Google tools, integration of Nearpod, and integration of Kami. So we're going to focus on the basic tools of utilizing Canvas and designing a lesson for secondary social studies. In building a lesson, we're going to use a 7th grade example. Although this is a 7th grade example, because the Louisiana Department has set up the resources with the same format and materials For all our testing areas are the same with companion documents in scope and sequence set up in the same format. We can use a model lesson for 7th grade so that high school teachers can also understand how to utilize this lesson and how it pertains to building their lesson in Canvas. So remember, all activities are either aligned to or based upon activities found within the Louisiana Department of Education scope and sequence. In this particular lesson, we're going to focus on the French and Indian War. You will see from this lesson that the content comes directly from the Louisiana Department of Education. As you can look at the screen, you can also see not only do we have the content lined up with the scope and sequence, but we also utilized and found what primary content from our companion document also goes with this lesson to make sure that we are covering the GLEs for this subject area in the right way. We know that we will need to analyze the causes and effects of the Revolutionary War, and we understand that we need to be able to describe the outcome of the French and Indian War and its effects as relations between British and the colonies leading to the Revolutionary War. So this lesson will focus on these things. What we teach has not changed, just our platform. Then we take our resource guide that was created for us from Caddo Parish Task Force Team, where you can look and see it is mapped out for you day by day and or depending on your course by the week. Either way, you will have an outline of activities to know what exactly it is that you should be teaching and keeping your pace. So in this lessons today, we're going to focus on day 1 and day 3 of the 7th grade, where we're going to be talking about Unit 1, Topic 1, the rising tensions with Britain. As you can see, the outline format that we have and where the content is coming from and the resources that were created by Caddo Parish Task Force are all incorporated within this lesson. Now, let's move to our Canvas model. Let's look at our 7th grade model for today. Remember, the first rule of Canvas is publish, publish, publish. As you go through your course, monitor your courses and assignment release dates. This is very critical for you as the instructor because you have to remember to always check student view to see if you remember to publish your items so that your students will be able to see the assignments that you have posted for them. Now, as we go to our modules, you will see that the modules are in exact align for this model based on your scope and sequence. As you can see in this 7th grade model, that our modules are designed based on the scope and sequence. So we start off with Unit 1, Topic 1, Week 1. Each module of daily lesson has an agenda and resource page. As you click on this, you will see we have the unit claim listed, the objective for today, and the essential questions. Remember, just because we are in the Canvas platform, we still must let our students know what their unit claim is, what the objective is, and the essential questions. They should be a part of your lesson. Also, your daily agenda. As you can see in this model, we have not only listed the items in order in which the students will be having their instruction, but also models of strategies. So for example, if students are going to do the unwrap and they're new to this strategy, I've also put in a link for a model for you to use with your students. Also, your students will be asked to annotate with online tools in Google Docs. I also included a short video so students can see what that is like as well. So we have built-in models or guided practice for students. Also, where this content can be located, what they will be utilizing for their tools, what they will be doing, and then also to keep the teacher to keep themselves and their students on pace, I have broken down the lesson based on a 55-minute period, give or take. And in this lesson, students have a beginning with a bell ringer from an unwrap strategy from our SNS guides, incorporated a hook. Then teachers have their lessons based on the assignments they're supposed to be doing, a model of what teachers should be teaching according to their Tier 1 resource, the scope and sequence, and an exit slip at the end. Going back to our modules, in here we have the bell ringer. Remember that the students are supposed to do an unwrap, and on the first day of the unwrap, they will be annotating using the unwrap strategy. So to help students do that, as you can see, I took the S&S guide document for 7th grade and put all the resources on one page so the students can go ahead and that Monday do their unwrap of the source. And remember, if for some reason students can't necessarily, they did the unwrap strategy last year and have forgotten, the strategy of underlining, numbering, walking through the questions, reading the passage, answer the questions, and prove your answer is here for students to follow, as well as a model of what that looks like with a student sample. Remember that as we do model lessons, especially in Canvas, it is good if we can provide students with exemplars of what our expectations are for them in the lesson. Next, we have a hook. In our hook, we're asking students to watch the video and list 6 things they noticed from the film to discuss with the class. Then they have to put that in a text. So when we look at our student view to see what our students will see, they can watch the video and then respond to their answer. And in this, we're asking them to list 6 items from the video. The video is 3 minutes long, so that gives them 2 things to recall per minute. This is a way that a strategy in the classroom that teachers can use to help students stay on task and pay attention to videos or other media that we use to try to help teach the content and build the foundation. Our next activity for our Monday's lesson is an assignment of students comparing. As you can see in this lesson, note, teachers can hyperlink websites like the map found on the scope and sequence. This allows students to observe the document from their devices. So as you can see here, this has been hyperlinked as a website. Students are asked to go in and compare the maps and compare the difference between the 2 maps as we'll begin to study the French and Indian War. We want to definitely spike students' curiosity. That's a part of our TAP rubric, where we try to motivate students and encourage them to try to learn the content and explore the sources themselves. And then they get an opportunity to put this into Canvas. The next assignment that students have is to annotate documents from the scope and sequence from the French and Indian War and the Treaty of Paris. Now, I've already showed you from your unwrap how you can utilize the tool of camming. and we will discuss Cami in other areas of this lesson. But we also want you to understand that you can also have your students, depending on what the document is, click on it, and you can actually force your students to make a copy if it's something that you want them to download and work on and then upload and send it to you as a file. If it is a Google document, at the end where it says edit, backspace to edit and type in the word copy. So when you save that link and paste it, students will automatically have to make a copy. Now, we also have it where we can, thanks to Canvas, embed our documents. But this is just another option to let you know how students can download information, work on it, upload their pictures or their documents, however the case may be, and then send it to you. Sometimes we have to be patient with our students as they're learning Canvas as well. So some of them may not know all the ways in which they can submit their assignments, or their parents may be helping them as they get through this process, or parents may not understand. So these are definitely, just know that there are more than one ways in which students can submit their assignment. They can definitely upload the file and then submit it that way as well. Also remember that we have put a annotation with Google Docs link in our resource page of our agenda. So if students are not familiar with the tools that they can utilize in Google to do this, this is definitely something they want to do. Remember that if you do not want to do that, you still can go back to our example from the bell ringer, where you as the teacher can embed the documents into Cami, and the students have the option to put text boxes, highlighters, make shapes, several different features that are very good as far as annotating and utilizing, especially that unwrap strategy where they can mark up, make comments, if it was math, that's not definitely us, add images, etc. They can do all this through Cami. I'm going to leave the student view of this and go to my view, just in case you did not understand how this process works. Let's go look at how I uploaded documents within Cami. So when we look at Cami, as you can see, if I go to edit the assignment setting, I put my directions in, and after I put my directions in, I came to enter and find the external tool URL. When I click find, I go down and I went to Cami Google Docs assignment. I clicked on it, and then I selected from my Google Drive what I wanted to upload. Now, I'm going to cancel this because I don't want to mess up my assignment. But you get the point of how easy it is to do this. This is a Google Doc. This is not a PDF. Once again, I want to tell you, this is me uploading a Google Doc into Cami. So you can upload Google Docs as well as PDFs in Cami for students to have that annotation tool as well. So now we've talked about two ways in which your students can annotate documents, and which is something very important in social studies as it relates to primary and secondary resources. We want our students to be able to do that. Now, let's move on to the other components of the lesson. We also have, after our readings, and remember in the Google Docs that if you wanted to, a good thing that you may want to have students to do is assign them a partner perhaps. So if I did put this assignment in Google Docs, and I have my students make a copy, not only can I use my highlighting tools, But I could actually have students do their editing and make comments, or have them to do gisting in Google, so they can highlight, they can read, and they can actually share their documents with their partner and have a group discussion, however you want them to do after they do their annotations. So there are wonderful ways in which students can collaborate with each other and give feedback, peer feedback, utilizing Google tools in that manner. It could be anything from highlighting, or it could be adding suggestions to the document. So there are all kind of ways in which students can utilize this tool. So we want to make sure the students understand that there are different ways, and we want you to understand as the teacher in the classroom that there are multiple ways or methods you can use to help your students collaborate with each other in the classroom. Next, in our module, we have the French and Indian War discussion question. This is another great way for students can communicate and work with each other, where they have their prompts based on their readings. They have to answer these questions. These questions come straight from the scope and sequence guide, which all our testing areas have essential questions throughout. And here the students will complete a discussion question prompt. And in here, if you notice, I put no less than 200 words. Now, you can adjust this how you see fit. But what I wanted to point out was that I put an expectation on students. So I didn't just say, well, do a discussion question, but I said, okay, this is what I want your discussion question to be. You may want to upload rubrics and create rubrics. But if not, this is another method where you can do it. Some teachers tell their students you have to have a paragraph, and your paragraph have to have X amount of sentences. These are things that you can do, but we want to make sure that we have clear directions for students. Remember that, especially for your students that may not be with you and they're working on Canvas, and they're doing virtual, very clear-cut directions are very, very important as it relates to students learning the content. We want to make sure they have a great understanding of it and how it works. So not only have we utilized Kami and documents, but now we're going to move on to incorporating a strategy that is in our SNS guides, the Writing Revolution sentence fragments. So in this sentence fragment sheet, as you can see, students have the option to submit this through Google assignment. And once again, I have here as two things I want to show you as it relates to this assignment. Now, one thing I want to point out that's very important. Have a buddy teacher. Miss Emmanuel is on our task force. So have a buddy teacher come in and test your stuff as a student. And one thing that we noticed that when she did that, because we had already created these documents in our scope and sequence, we had them with the lines. But when you're doing this and you've already done these over the summer, these were designed to be worksheets for teachers. So now that we're using them on an online platform, instead of us doing it this way, what we've decided to do is, when we look at it, we went back and said, hey, you know what? Those lines move. So let's change those lines into text boxes so students can write in the text box. Now, the beauty of this thing is what I noticed and that I love to share with teachers is because we're not the tech people, we're the instructional people. But say you made a mistake, or say you made this discovery that you had created a Google Doc assignment for your students, and then your first period pointed out something to you and like, oh gosh, I need to change that. And I've already had students submit. It doesn't matter. Miss Emanuel had submitted her assignment to me, but guess what? I could went in and altered that document, and my students that will get it now will receive the corrected document. So you can make changes as you go, still as you normally do with Google. And even though you have embedded it in and uploaded it in, you can still change that and make those corrections for your students because we're all human. So we can make mistakes. Oh no, yes we can. We can make mistakes at the beginning of a period, and then if we see that mistake or we see something that works or flows better for our students, we may have different students. We may want to change some rigor or some things. We may want to change something in our questions or something like that. So these are kind of good things for us to know, especially as we think about our different to do differential instruction with our students and tiered lessons. So those are just things that were like, yes, okay, love that, yay, okay. And that's why it is so, so important. But not only if you can, try to get somebody who may be outside of your subject area even to check your modules as a student, especially as you're beginning the Canvas and going through this process of learning. And don't get frustrated. It's a learning process. It's a learning curve for everyone. It'll be a learning curve for students. It'll be a learning curve for yourself. Don't get stressed out about it, but just remember that you want to think like the student. We don't want to make the assumption that they should already know. Okay, it's the beginning of the school year, so it may not work out just that perfect. So that is another way in which students can do that, and that's Google assignment. So you see 2 or 3 different ways we utilize Google Docs in this. Remember, you still can create quiz through Google Forms. Some of the teachers take Google slide decks and do click and drags as far as their questions and their assessments. There's just a wide range of what you can do with Google. So if you're comfortable with Google and you've been utilizing Google, don't worry about some of these other things that you're not so familiar with. This is why we're at the basic level. When we move up next time, we'll go to the advanced. As you see, I have some things that we're going to go over next time that are not highlighted in our module or published because they're going to be a part of our next lesson. So that's definitely we're taking steps through this process. Now, if you're feeling good and you want to go forward and go forth and do other things, that's fine. But if you just stick with the basics of Google Docs, utilizing Cami, especially in social studies, I just think that's an awesome tool to utilize for your students as far as annotating. If you want to do that, that is absolutely okay. All right. So now let's talk about day 2. In our day 2 7th grade model, we're going in and we're going to skip a day. We're going to go to Wednesday. So we're in day 3. Now remember, our SNS guides are designed for majority of our testing areas day by day and our civics day by day. Now, 6th grade testing area is weekly. World history and world geography is done more on the weekly basis for high school. But that doesn't mean that the tools that you have are not able to be utilized so that you can use them on a day-by-day basis. Okay? So now looking at our SNS guides, many of the components that we have in our lessons are this, regardless if they're a testing area or not in social studies. All SNS guides have the unwraps for the week, and they have the TWR strategies made for you. And Unit 1 we have more in Unit 1. Now, as Unit 2 and Unit 3 progress, they're less, but we really went heavy with the writing revolution strategies that we talked about this summer for all our areas of tested areas and non-tested areas in social studies. So now when we look at this lesson, it's a little different. Once again, I do want to point out that 7th grade agenda, it is very detailed. Do not forget unit claim. If you're going to make Google Slides and do it that way, some of you have made some really cute emoji, the Bmoji things in the pages. That's really, really cute. That's really good. That is wonderful. But what we want you to mainly think is that we want you to remember in all the excitement of doing those is that we want to have a structured lesson for instruction. We want to have a structured lesson. We can't just upload documents in Canvas and say, oh, they got it. Okay, we want to make sure that our students have an objective, central questions, that the unit claim is drilled into them, and everything that we teach, we relate it right back to the unit claim. Okay, we relate everything that we do. How does the STEM at crisis affect, and what does it fall into the unit claim? We definitely want to remind our students about our key things. We use all our essential documents. We want to make sure that we give them multiple methods of assessment with the rigor that they need for state testing. Now we're going to our Wednesday lesson, and I'm going to walk you through how we do to add our bell ringer in Cami. So when we click on our unwrap, our bell ringer for this week is we're on Wednesday. So when we look at it, and I go to edit my assignment, if I click here, I had said I wanted to do this, but you know what? I don't want to do this anymore. So, students will complete, students will answer Wednesdays bell ringer. Okay. Now, here I'm going to go to my external tool. I'm going to click Find. And then I'm going to go to Cami. And then I want Wednesday. Make sure that you organize your drive, have you a system so you know where your documents are, where you upload it, because it's going to be very crucial when you want to change something. And it's going to make it much easier if you can find them. Perhaps I want to give students unlimited opportunity to do this. Perhaps I want to give them only 1 or 2 options to do this. It's up to me. So then I want to make sure that they have the opportunity to get to this document. Remember, dates are very important. If I give them a date, if I give them an assignment before it's open, then they cannot get to that assignment. Okay? So this is the due date, and this is open until then. Then I click Save. In our unwrap, when we look at Wednesday, you see that students have an opportunity to still use their annotation tools in Cami. In fact, all of the unwraps are also in Cami, just because you just have a little more to deal with as far as the tools, as far as marking up for students. Remember, they've already been exposed to this resource, so it shouldn't take them as long to answer the multiple select question, which is a form of assessment that has the rigor that we encourage. So all of these tools came from the scope and sequence guide that was created by your social studies middle school task force, and they did a very awesome job in supporting and helping me to create resources to support teachers. So once again, this is an example of what that looks like. Now we go back to our modules, and we've talked about Google Docs and we've talked about Cami. I even modeled for you how to add those tools into your lesson as it relates to social studies and where that source comes from. Now we're going to look at a Nearpod. If you'll notice about the Nearpod, the same way that I did the embedment of Google assignments and the same way that I embedded the Cami assignments, you do the same thing when you add in your Nearpod lessons. So when you go to Nearpod and create your lessons and make it into this, then you add them into, and here we go. Here's the stamp act. And in this lesson, we already have, once again, what's our essential questions? Remember, here's an example of us utilizing Google Slides. Remember that in Google Slides, you have the, you can add your Nearpod extension tool, and that will allow you up here in your extensions and into Google to be able to utilize those Nearpod tools. So even if you're not in Nearpod, you can use those. Also, remember, if you don't know, vocabulary that is used a great deal in Nearpods, you can use those in isolation. If you don't know how to get to those, please send me an email. And here we go, our lesson objective. Now here is, I think I went too fast. This document comes straight from our SNS guide. This is what our scope and sequence guide. It's in here for your students to read as they go through it. Now, this is the difference. Oh, Nearpod is going a little fast there. Okay, I put this graphic organizer in the Nearpod to do this. I have had different, my students, my adult students, say, well, it's hard for them to read. So if you'll notice that in your modules, I added it as a Cami document too. So you may want to do that with your students. Just have this here so they'll know that based on this information, this is what they're going to complete. Then we did a matching exercise based on what they've learned. This can be student self-paced. So while they're doing this, they can actually be doing this on their Cami. It's just you have so many different options as a teacher, but this is just showing you how it is in the Nearpod. Then we do a matching, and then you have a poll question at the end, an open info. See, you have to know your material, because if don't, it'll just hit, let me go right on by. So where students get a chance to discuss these things. There are a lot of great tools in your Nearpods that you get an opportunity to utilize with your students. We use it a great deal in middle school when we were making our home learning lessons. So definitely high school, if you have not got on the Nearpod bandwagon, hurry up and get on the Nearpod bandwagon. I am going to have Zooms calls or office hours from 3:30 to 5 from August the 24th to the 28th. Let this video be out there so everyone have access to it. So then you can come back and we can do a chat, and I'll be here to support you as far as any of the things that you saw me to do in these lessons as far as building them. Perhaps you need someone to help you kind of go more one-on-one on building Nearpod lessons, or one-on-one on importing lessons into Cami, or working with Google Docs, in Google Forms or Google Slides. By all means, I'm here for you. Okay. And so once again, going back, we've modeled for you how to put this into Cami, but also now you see that document is in Cami. Students, another thing, teachers, remember these come straight from your scope and sequence guides. So you can still have models for students. You can take your answer key and have one already in here for your students, and then so they can have a kind of an understanding. If you need to tier it for some of your students and fill in some spaces and to help get them started, you can do that. This is a blank canvas, but by all means, you still want, like we talked about before, that guided practice. So, and if you looked at my agenda, I said make sure, because follow the scope and sequence, you want to review their graphic organizer with your students. There are ways, like we talked about, gisting documents, all those different strategies that you have. You can utilize all those tools with Google Docs and Cami to help your students develop lessons. Remember, we still did forms of grouping. We did discussion questions. We had students to comment on each other's. We gave you an example how students can work with each other in a Google Doc, as far as highlighting and giving comments and having discussion on an online platform, so that this one whole class, regardless. And then our modules, going back to the end, for our last module, once again, we go back to that writing revolution strategy, those fragments. Our exit ticket, remember what's the important thing, or what's great about this, and as you can see on this one, we have the lines. But a student can insert, they can insert their text box and put it in and answer their questions. Now, remember, you know your students, so you know their level. So that's why I don't design your lesson. It's the model. You know if you need to go up on your rigor, if you need to go down on your rigor. But remember this, as the instructional specialist in me has to say, remember at the end, they all take the same test. So do not water down your curriculum to such a point that when testing comes, your students are not prepared or ready for the test. Okay? We want to tier them, but we also want to tier them up if they are a little behind. We do know that our students have had gaps in instructions based on last year because of the COVID-19, but we definitely want to do whatever we can do to help catch our students up and build that foundation. That is why I love the fact that in social studies we have the scope and sequence documents, the key themes, the essential documents. So regardless of whether you're in the 6th grade or you're in the 11th grade, your format for these lessons are the exact same. You will have the same thing. You will have a bell ringer or some form of a hook that is high school through middle school. You will have secondary and primary resources that you have to annotate, dig through the documents, ask each other questions, have debates, etc., collaborate with each other. Then you will also have it where you can integrate technology. There's a lot of tools in Nearpod where the students can race against each other. There's just, oh my God, there's just a plethora of things they can do with Nearpod. Not just the matching, but so much. That was just checking for understanding. And it's the first week of school. But we definitely want to make sure that our students are utilizing these materials and resources to the best of, and that we're utilizing them and planning it. Remember, you always plan with backwards design in mind. Okay? We're planning with backwards design in mind. What do we want our students to know at the end of the day? All of these things have been laid out for you. These are step-by-steps following the scope and sequence to get students ready for their summative assessment at the end of the unit, or to have and do checkpoints with your students at the end of the topics for units. If they have at the end of topic 1, at the end of topic 2, help your students with those. Now, what are our next steps? Remember that our next training will be on stage 3. Are we teaching in the right way in an intermediate? This is beginning, and now we're going, and the next one will be intermediate. But what should you do until in the meantime? We want you to build a few Canvas lessons using what you've learned from today's session. Join the follow-up Zoom meeting to talk about the experience. Remember, my office hours for middle and high school teachers will be from August the 24th to the 28th, 2020. After you've watched the video, had an opportunity. If you need to contact me before then, please contact me, Chandra Phillips, CM Phillips at cattleschools.org. Also, you can call me at area code 318-603-5809. If you have not done so already, please check out some of our sessions, Social Studies Basic 101 on demand, as well as How to Teach Historical Thinking on demand. Once again, My Zoom meeting hours will be August the 24th to the 28th, 2020, from 3:30 p.m. to 5 o'clock p.m. If you need support before then, please just send me an email so we can have a Zoom. Whatever I can do to help support you in your classroom, please let me know. I am so excited about what's to come in this new experience that we're having in teaching our babies and our young ones. Thank you.